I was seeing things and hearing things that other people were not seeing. I actually thought I died. I thought the world was ending. I am continuing to be addicted to drugs and I can't stop. I have everything that I thought at that point that would make me happy. I am not, okay? I should be happy. I go into a full vision. I knew I was in Egypt. The people were screaming and there were like children being killed, and they were taking the blood and they were spreading it over the doorposts. I knew that the thing inside of me, it hated him. It wanted him to die. And he said, in the name of Jesus, you leave her. God, the true living God who came to the earth as a human, stepped in my life and was about to reveal to me the biggest questions I've ever had in my life and heal me and deliver me. Hi. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, come forward just a little bit.
Okay, like this?
Yeah, that's good.
All right. All right. Hi, I'm Lesley, and I'm so excited to take you through the journey of my testimony. I have been excited for years to one day share my story. Not only because I believe in the power of the testimony, but I absolutely love hearing people's testimonies. I love listening to people's stories. I actually have been that way my whole life. I used to get in trouble for school because I wouldn't stop talking to my neighbor and I just wanted to know, like, hi, talk to them, you know. I love hearing about people. It's my passion. And now I get to take you through my story, and I'm really excited to do that. So I'm just going to paint the picture of my life all the way leading up to when God radically changed my life. And I also just want to take a second to thank everyone who did share their testimonies and who are sharing their testimonies online and who will share their testimonies online. Almost 8 years ago is when God rescued me. I don't say saved me anymore. I say rescued me. He absolutely rescued my life. And at the point when he did that, I will get to that point in the story, but I didn't know what was going on. And when I was led to go online and listen to testimonies, it was when I truly started realizing I wasn't going crazy. So many people were experiencing the exact same thing. And so praise God for all of our stories, and they're important and they're necessary, and we all need to share them. And I'm just going to keep it real and raw and genuine. That's what this whole channel is going to be about. Isn't that what we're all craving? Just real people, like take the masks off, just be who you are, talk about your story. I will say, if you are listening to testimonies online, just always listen to them first before letting young children listen to them. We are talking about, just some mature content. And so let's just get into it. Let's start from the beginning. I was born in Ohio in the United States. I was born to a mother and father, and of course, like so many stories, unfortunately, divorce happened pretty much right away. I had a sibling. My sister's 2 years younger than me. I was almost 4 when my dad left. I don't have any memories of like my mom and dad together in our home, like none. Like my first memories are just me and my mom and sister. That's where my life and my memories are. Of course, so many great memories are there because I have an awesome mom. But also some of my memories are very full of feeling grief that my mother experienced. I'm grateful that my mom just used so much wisdom and didn't ever speak badly about my father to us as children. She had to split custody, and I know that was just so hard as a mother to have your husband leave you and then have to let your children go every other weekend and see them. So we loved that as kids, though. Me and my sister loved to go see my dad. He was so kind to us and just loving, took care of us. But it was just a different dynamic. You're like, your whole life changes. And so I know that it really, really affected me emotionally. And now that I see how things affect things spiritually, a major shift in the spirit happens when families split apart. And I just was very sensitive. I am a very sensitive person. God made me this way. He does that on purpose and for a reason. But when you have sensitive people, every single person processes things differently. But I know that I was very emotionally affected by that. My mom said I was very inconsolable when I realized my father wasn't coming home, like most children. My father actually remarried pretty quickly. He actually left my mother and got married to his secretary. And so that I know was extremely grievous for my mother. And praise God, she knew God. She actually taught Sunday school and took us to church at that age. So she had a strong faith. And I think seeing that as a kid, just thank God for that. You know, she did have to see us go every other weekend. So we would go to my dad's house and it was just a different dynamic. Like it was just a different atmosphere being at home with my mom to being at home with my father and stepmother. They were always just playing loud music. My father loves music like I do so much, almost to where it's like you idolize it, like playing 90s rock music. And I got introduced to so much music going to my dad's house. I mean, first time singing karaoke there. It was almost like a party all the time and like a lot of material things. And as a kid, you love that. You love being able to go shopping. You love being able to go out to eat. You love being able to just have fun. And I'm thankful that my father and stepmom always took care of me well when I was there. And there was no spiritual aspect to it. It was just, you know, like there was no like conversations about God as a kid with my dad. But I loved running around and having fun. That's what I wanted to do. I was born with just so much energy and joy. I know God gifted me with joy. And the devil doesn't like joy. So he likes to do what he can to steal that. So as I can't remember what age I was, my mom met my stepdad. So I was so used to being at home with my sister and mom and making homemade pizzas and just feeling so safe and loving being there to all of a sudden my mom has a new person coming around. And as a kid, I think any kid just thinks it's, you know, like has to acclimate to that. You want your mom to be treated right. You want to be comfortable. It's just different, you know? And so my mom ends up getting married to my stepdad and we move out of my first home into another home in Ohio. And I remember just not enjoying that, just, you know, I don't like this house and I don't want to move. And I was in school and I began to start playing in the band. I'm a musician. And so I was interested in singing and music very young. So I would go to that to sing around. And my grandma got me a piano in second grade. And I would sit and play on the piano and I would want to go outside and like I'd be that kid that's like, come on inside. And you're like, no, you know, you just want to keep playing. I was climbing trees. I was riding my bike and just, I would prefer not to even go to sleep because I'm having so much fun. And I would get to see my grandparents on both sides were wonderful and in my life. My mom's family is from the southeastern Arkansas, and my father's family is from Ohio. Actually, like his great grandma is like 100%, or I guess my great grandma is 100% Hungarian, and they came over from Hungary years ago over to Ohio, and so that's why we lived in Ohio. As my mom moved to live where his family was. And that was hard for her as well because when he left, her family was all down south. So eventually we moved down south. But yeah, we lived in a new home with my stepdad. And I remember just realizing that he was very different. And unfortunately, I don't know how to say this because I love my family so much, but it just started to get hard for me. I'm someone who picks up on everything and feels everything. And so like if parents are fighting, it was just a lot for me to handle. It went from being in that house alone with my mom and everything was just kept in order and peaceful to like my mom's really busy and all of a sudden the house is not kept up all the time. And when I was 9, I believe, I don't remember how old I was. My mom got pregnant with one of my sisters. So me and my 2 years younger sister were getting another sister, and we were really excited about that. So when she was born, I got to help really like take care of her and change her diaper and help my mom out. My mom always has worked full time. She is just 5 days a week, gone to work, come home, make you dinner, and have your weekends with her. So I always wanted to be like the helper and help her out. I probably took a little too much up on myself regarding, like, I don't know, you start to realize that when you're young and you love someone so much, like I love my mom so much, that I kind of took on her emotions. Like, I hope she's okay and I want to help her out. And if she had a fight, I want to comfort her. And I know that affected me. But I began to reject my stepdad. I was not comfortable. I don't know what all I was processing in my spirit, but I don't know exactly what he has gone through. I know some of the things that he's been through, but personally, it must have been horrible, because as soon as I feel like I showed signs of rejection, he didn't have the capacity to love us. He didn't have the capacity to know how to be a father at all, because he wasn't treated right by his father. I mean, isn't that a common story we all know? We know of just families who pass on generational trauma, and the next generation's not equipped to be a parent. And so he had, a tattoo of a Tasmanian devil on his arm. And I feel like if I could explain what sometimes I would experience is a Tasmanian devil regarding like anxiety and fear, and someone blowing up and being angry. And it extremely affected me. So with my little sister being born, it feels like I changed more diapers than he did. I just feel like I was able to be around more than him. They were both just working a lot. And I was continuing to go back and forth from my father's to my mother's and have the dynamic of now a new sister and two homes. And eventually my dad did move out of state, and her and my stepdad both decided to move down to Arkansas. So that's where I spent most of my life, was in just central Arkansas from about 6th grade until just last year. I'm 33 years old, just by the way, filming this. And so, last year, the end of last year, 2024, I moved to Georgia, but we'll get there as well. So my stepdad's family was from the north as well. So he decided to move with my mother down to the south and leave his family up north. And they got a place in Arkansas. Something wonderful that I started doing in that time of my life is join the band. I'm a total band nerd. I love music. I've always loved music. I think I mentioned it earlier, but in 5th grade in Ohio is when you start the band, the concert band, when they get the kids gathered up and they say, what instrument do you want to play? And you start music classes. Well, I started playing the clarinet in 5th grade. My aunt on my dad's side, my dad's oldest sister, plays the clarinet as well. She has similar musical giftings. And she actually helped just kind of inspire me to play that instrument. I was drawn to it. And I immediately picked it up, could supernaturally play by ear. My mom says that. She said I picked it up and just was able to play Amazing Grace like right away. And that's something I just know I took so much refuge in, was not only listening and discovering music in the world, but playing music and starting band. And so when I moved down to Arkansas, it was me and my two sisters and my stepdad and mom, and my dad, I think, was living in Florida. He moved around a couple times, and so we would go fly and see him. But anyway, so I started a new school, and it felt so different. Like, I remember in Ohio, I felt like I was this kid who was riding her bike in 5th grade with just kids at school, to all of a sudden I entered 6th grade and all the people I'm surrounded by are just not doing appropriate things, not speaking about appropriate things. They're just doing, that was my experience, though. I don't know if it's just the people I was surrounded by in my neighborhood or had to ride the bus with every day, or just the atmosphere of that age at school. But I remember it felt like I was thrown into being just a kid that was just innocent to like all of a sudden doing what so many people do, which is turning into a chameleon. How can I fit in here? I became friends with a couple girls that I was in the neighborhood with and that I was on the bus with every day and that I saw every day. And I definitely would say that I guess, how old are we in like 6th grade? Like 12? Yeah, 12. It's like, entered a, it's like where I can see the devil really started coming in to really start bringing things into my mind, um, influencing me, tempting me. I just was, I just was so wanting to be loved by everyone. And I loved everyone. I literally like love every single type of person. And so I didn't know how to just be me. I think the only be me I was being a total band nerd, and I didn't relent with that one. But I just had, I just think back on my 6th and 7th grade memories and the people I was around, and it's really where my life started to change regarding wanting people to like me. What kind of clothes do other people who seem cool wear that I maybe should wear? What music are other people listening to that is cool that I may need to listen to? I always got in trouble in school for talking. I literally could go find a couple of those teachers probably and get them to testify. I just talked all the time. I would just have to, write extra homework words or sit at the teacher's desk. I literally had to sit at the teacher's desk one time for a whole semester because he said even if I was sitting by myself, I would talk to the wall. So that's a little glimpse of how I was like. I didn't ever really like hone in on why I was learning things in school studies. I always looked around and saw other people learning and always thought, I'm not smart like them. I really did feel that way because I could see other people focusing and studying and doing well, and I just did not understand why we were even learning things. It was just a part of my understanding was blocked. I didn't really care. And so I did fine in school, but when I hit 9th grade, my mom really challenged me. She knew how to get to me and said, hey, 9th grade is when it matters. You need to go ahead and do good in school. And she knew how to challenge me the right way to make me to get good grades. And so I started doing well, and I graduated with honors, and I made homecoming court, and I played in the band, and I went to all region, all state bands. And that's just like a glimpse of my school. So while everyone sees me at school as probably like energetic, they could look at me and say like, oh, wow, she looks happy and she is, first chair clarinet and makes homecoming chord and seems genuinely nice, and does good at school. But I'm going to be very honest. When I was home, I was riddled with anxiety, and I didn't want anyone to come over. I didn't want anyone to be at my home because reaching about 7th and 8th grade is when it became a absolutely horrible place for me. I just remember going to sleep every night with my stepdad just yelling at my mom, and we had lived in a small house. You can hear everything. And it just was like, I just wanted to defend her. Like I literally remember standing up to defend my mom, just basically saying stop fighting, and it feeling like my bones were going to pop out of my body because my body would just completely tense up. My kneecaps felt like they were going to bust. Like I was just like stop. Like I just the more that I realized how God made me, the more I realized why I felt everything. But it was like I couldn't handle it. I could not handle how I felt. And so in my memory, I was in like 8th grade, and I think I hurt myself, and I think my mom gave me like a slight pain pill because I truly injured myself. And that was the unexpected introduction to me wanting to go to drugs to numb and escape the way I was feeling. That is where another door is open in my life. A very long one, unfortunately. I didn't get introduced to drugs by friends and just get peer pressured. I got introduced to them at home, and I hid it. And no one knew I was beginning to sneak in my mom's medicine cabinet and find whatever she gave me, because when I took that, it didn't feel so crazy at the house. I remember specifically like laying in the bathtub, like took that, opiate, and thinking it just felt like the noise was quieter. Like I could get further away from how I felt. I didn't care as much. It numbed something in me. And so I began to do that regularly. I would regularly go find those pills my mom had. she has no addiction in her bones. So like she would have never guessed this, but I know that after she dealt with having me experience that, she would have not just left, strong medicine out for her children to find, but she wouldn't have even thought that that was an option. But it became something I hid and I did to cope with being home. And that's when I really started to want to just not be home. I would go to my neighbors I made friends with and just be like, can I stay the night? And like my mom would be like, you need to come home, Lesley. And I wouldn't want to. Not because I didn't want to see my mom, but I think the worst thing I could ever feel is her being treated bad. I feel like I would rather have been treated bad myself than see her be treated bad. And then by the time I can't remember how old I was, my mom got pregnant with my brother. And so now we have a full house. We have 4 children and I get to help raise my brother at a young age too. So that's 6 of us in the house. And, I'm just was so sensitive. And if my stepdad would get drunk and he would just snap. Like it would be like you're excited about to make dinner with everyone and he's cooking to coming inside later drunk and just completely different. And it was just like the ability to feel like you never know what's going to happen and you start to feel like anxiety every now and then became full time for me. Anxiety, full time feeling like I was in fight or flight, did not feel safe. You're going through your hormones changing at 16 and different things. And I just was not it. Anxiety, now that I really know how to look back on that, anxiety became like who I was and people wouldn't have known that. But you just don't understand when you're going through it, what is going on. You're just trying to just function. So I used the drugs to escape. But you wouldn't have known, like people wouldn't have known that. And so by the time I don't know, maybe in 9th grade is when the other friends that I was around were starting to do drugs recreationally with their friends. And so I got introduced to marijuana, and marijuana was like a portal to change my life. I remember like hitting a cigarette from the neighbor and like it hurting my lungs so bad. It felt horrible. Like, oh my gosh, felt like my lungs were dying. And I was like, I'm a clarinet player and I love to sing. What am I doing? Why would I do that? Like, that doesn't make any sense. That's ridiculous. Like, I still remember having that strong conviction in my spirit. And I mentioned that because that strong conviction ends up going away and you just give over to stuff. But anyway, I just remember being like, why am I doing this? Why did I hit that cigarette? And I tried smoking weed, but I didn't know how to inhale it right and everything. But marijuana became like my best friend for 13 years after this. So yeah, around the same time that I'm, going to the opiates to try to escape and hiding that from anyone. I remember I have this memory of going to do laundry and shaking. And it was because I had taken the strong opiate every day long enough to literally feel what I now know is like withdrawals. And I had no idea. I would get dizzy and I didn't have any clue that I would be going to that drug so much. Just when I got home from school, I just wanted to feel okay. So at the same time, I'm getting introduced to it by my friends. I'm hitting the age where my stepdad said that is what he did to have fun. And one weekend my mom was away. He gave me alcohol and said, this is what I did to have fun. You have fun and don't tell your mother. And so not only did I feel guilty that I'm like not going to tell my mother and I'm not supposed to do this, but it really started opening the door. I liked how I felt. I liked just numbing out, and I invited my neighbor friend over and influenced her doing that, drinking together. And I think another thing that's just so crazy to remember now is I was so glad my stepdad was talking to me. Like, he did not talk to us, ask us how we were, give us a hug, ever. And so for him to just speak to me and say like, hey, this is what I did to have fun, it literally felt like the first time he was ever trying to have a conversation with me. And so that began like an unhealthy thing for me, because later on when he would want to sneak me alcohol again, even if I didn't really want to, I felt like I don't want to say no because at least he's being nice to me. I'm just being very honest. And so another thing to add into the mixture of that is I'm still obviously going to see my dad, and him and my stepmom drink every single night, smoke cigarettes, live in a big house, and party with their friends, like I said. So it was being the normal to be around people drinking. And what I associated the drinking and stuff with is like socializing and fun and normal. And you can just kind of do normal life and do that every night. That's what adults do. And so after I did the first couple tries of drinking the alcohol, I began to start smoking pot with my friends, and just, I remember it making me feel anxious. But now I realize that I already felt anxious. So just shifting to another way of feeling anxious was just normal to figure out how to be comfortable with that new state of mind. So I wasn't the type of person who could smoke pot and not want it again. I had an addictive personality with that, just needing to feel okay. And so drugs began to be what I needed. And I'm still trying to do good in school, and I'm starting to become friends with the other girls that wanted a party as well. And I became a party girl. I became the girl who would go to the party and be the life of the party and want to not go home from the party. And it just spirals from there, like the people that I started hanging out with. Like I remember a friend being like, we're having a private party over at our friend's house, and we do theme parties, and we're going to do, a rave. And I was like, please, can I come? Just, wanting to fit in. And that was a horrible decision, very horrible decision. Why did I need to go to that? But it opened the door to another level of community, like just a wrong community, just a very wrong community, where they're just playing like drinking games and then eventually throwing homemade raves. And we would take ecstasy and we would do whatever else. And I remember even taking ecstasy for the first time was a big thing to mention, because I was terrified. And this is so twisted. This is really how the devil loves to make you just twist things. So I'm looking at other people who are about to take ecstasy, and I'm like, wow, they don't seem afraid. Why am I so afraid? So I was like, to be strong and courageous, I should be unafraid like them. So you need to take that drug. Like that was my mind process. Is like, gosh, they're so brave. I'm scared, so I need to be braver. So that's just a thought I had to mention. So when we started taking things like ecstasy, I just want to mention also, since I'm a musician, it made the enhancement of music and the feeling of where I'm so drawn to want to be partying, like it completely amplified that. Like you have people where they'll say you do something like ecstasy or drugs and you always want to chase that high again. Well, it's really true. Like I can look back in hindsight and say that I was trying to chase that feeling of like how everything felt amplified and everything felt fun, and I'd have to worry about the worries of the world. I think so bad that when we start to experience trauma, or we see the brokenness of the world, or we see the experiences around us where there's suffering, that a part of you is so longing for liberty. A part of you is so longing to get in a state where you're not worried about anything in the world. And so that's what I went to do that. So by the time I'm graduating, I'm partying so much. I am completely addicted to marijuana. I'm doing pills if you had it. I am doing raves. I am never wanting to go home. I'm having experiences where, like, one time I took something and something was in it that was bad, and I thought I would never come back. I thought I lost my mind. I blacked out in front of my family, fell down on the ground in the house, and I was just like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I must have gotten something bad in my marijuana." And they would always just be like, "Please stay away from drugs. There's so many." My mom always was giving me wisdom to stay away from drugs and stay away from people that are influencing bad and stay away from putting bad things on the internet. She always tried her best, to tell me and shift me away from the lifestyle I was just getting into full force. But I I'm juggling, like appearing like I've got some things together, to just a wreck at home and restless. I would say that the amount of restlessness that I had in my body was like extreme. And I believe it's like, I'll get into it later, but a generational curse of restlessness. It was like horrible. I would be sitting in somewhere like visiting my grandparents and want to enjoy sitting in the room with them and be like, I gotta go. I gotta go find a cigarette. Like it was, and I would be like so uncomfortable with that because I wouldn't want to leave the room, but I felt like almost like my body was disconnecting. And now I know what dissociation is, but I just felt dissociated from my body, and I felt like my body was so anxious and I had to be on drugs. I remember at that point, like even looking through my grandparents when I'd visit them, their medicine cabinet, like needing drugs. And so by the time I graduate high school, I have my first boyfriend, and he was partying with me as well, and I was starting to more and more not come home. And that's really hard too with the home dynamic because I had a very strong relationship with my little sister. She would like sleep in the bed with me, and I would just spend so much time with her to like, I'm just saying from her point of view, it's like that was what she experienced. And all of a sudden I'm pretty much like out of her life. Like I dipped out pretty young. I didn't want to be home. And so I graduate high school, and I had no like adult type thinking of a plan for my life. I wasn't like, I want to go to college or I know what I want to do next. Like I had no idea what I wanted to do next. I was day by day just trying to get by, and I didn't really care about anything except partying and trying to feel okay. As I'm transitioning from high school to college, I did go to college. My mom took me to an audition at University at Little Rock, took my clarinet, played a song, and got scholarships, and I went. But I had no idea what I was going to school to even do. I was just so ignorant, and I just had such a strong foundation of anxiety and partying in me that that's just what I continue to do is attract that atmosphere, those type of people, and those type of places. And so I remember just more and more things coming around regarding the partying lifestyle. And then I said, like around the same time where I'm transitioning into college, it's like I remember the first time I did LSD, and it was like I just didn't even really think it was real. It was so weird. I remember just drinking one night with my first boyfriend and my best friend at the time, bringing it around and just being, tipsy enough to feel brave enough to try it. And it was insane. Like literal tornadoes are hitting the town 30 minutes after I start taking it. And we go to a party, and my mom's calling me, freaking out because a tornado's hitting the town. And I am just experiencing a state of mind that I have never experienced. And I remember, I do want to just mention this because, obviously it's been almost 8 years, and I've asked God to show me so many things about what happened in my life. He showed me a major door open of fear because of the LSD. I wouldn't have been able to know that at the time, but I remember by the time it's 4 or 5 in the morning and I'm ready to go to sleep, my boyfriend had come down off the drugs, and it wasn't going away. So as soon as my mindset wanted it to go away, it went from just being fun and whatever to like the hamper in the room turning into a little monster, to everything's feeling dark. And I felt so afraid, and I hated that it wouldn't go away when I was ready to go to sleep. And the Lord just shows me these memories of what opened up in the spiritual realm for me. And so I'm doing that. My actual first boyfriend went, it was super toxic after a while, of course, just extreme partying, like his cousin bringing just mounts so much cocaine around. I started doing cocaine, and I already told you, I had so much supernatural energy. I did not need drugs like uppers. That's why I was doing downers most of the time, because I had that I had that extreme energy. Like that's why I was drawn to the opiates and was doing those. But when I did things like cocaine, it was just, it was not good for the way my brain and it's not good for anyone, right? But it sent me into a different state of mind, consciousness that I don't think I ever came back from for a while, and led me to be hospitalized. And so I'm about to get to when I was 19 and I was hospitalized, which was a huge life-altering, traumatic experience for me. My first boyfriend actually goes to the military. He goes off to the military, and I'm writing him letters every day, and I'm in love, and I want to be with one person. I wanted to give myself away to one person. And so I'm in that state, 17 years old, thinking I'm in love and feeling like I'm in love. He came back from the military and very quickly cheated on me and left me. And it broke something in me. I was already so set up by the enemy to be so vulnerable, to be like imbalanced in every way, body, mind, and spirit. And so when he did that to me, I broke. I actually entered a state of mania. It was like when that happened, the restlessness, the anxiety, the feeling of just, I have to just numb to get by. It amplified so much to where it's like I literally broke. I continued to just try to party, and he had a best friend at the time that I was used to being around for years. And so he was familiar to me, and I wanted to go to a party, and I went to a party one night with his best friend to see other friends, and his best friend ended up taking advantage of me when I was in a state not only of drugs, but in that state of just absolute, like, just, I can't even explain the state of mind that I was in. And so the trauma continued, and I was not okay after that because I'd only been with that one person. And so that is where that part of my consciousness of like, wow, I just got, someone else just wanted to take me intimately. And so who cares about that anymore? It's like I almost turned something off because that trauma, that was a door to turning off the caring about the value of my body and the intimacy and everything like that. And so the enemy is setting me up for something so big that I want to hit on. And that's when I am 19 years old. I was hospitalized. I actually was hospitalized more than once. I dropped out of college. Well, I lost my scholarships. I just couldn't manage. I couldn't take care of myself well. And I found myself in the hospital at 19 years old in psychosis. And it's so hard to talk about from those years of like when high school's ending to this point because my memories are so jumbled up. I don't know how to explain what happened in the order that it happened. It was so much going on. I'm just grateful that I was alive because there was so much recklessness going on in my life at this point. And by the grace of God, I lived. I was in car wrecks and just at the point that I ended up starting college too, I ended up getting introduced to like music festival scenes. And that was a whole new world that opened up to me, that like a part of my soul just turned off something and said, I just want to go full force into figuring out how to feel free at these music festivals. And so with the music festivals and the drugs and the trauma, when I was hospitalized, I really want to, in another episode, just break down more of what happened, but I'm kind of just going to give an overview because it's just so much going on. I don't want to get lost in my memories, but it was very terrifying for my family to see that happen because I was pretty much gone all the time for such a long period of time that by the time they see me again, I'm in psychosis. I'm being hospitalized. I am talking without being able to control it. It's a state of mania. And of course, I just think it's all the side effects of drugs. And I I didn't understand what was going on at all. But I definitely entered a different state of reality. I was seeing things and hearing things that other people were not seeing. When I was hospitalized one of the times, I still get the 2 times confused. It's that much jumbled in my mind. The one time I was hospitalized, I actually thought I died. I thought the world was ending. I thought that everyone, when the world ended, that was still remaining were like the good people. It was like the delusion and the place of state of mind that I was in was so far gone. My family was actually very terrified that I wouldn't come back, because when you have mental health world, they just see things all the time that's very, very, dangerous. And some people who go into states of psychosis don't return in their mind. So my family's afraid that I'm not ever going to come back. And I'm just, my mom said I didn't even recognize my sister at one point. It was just so traumatic. And I was there for multiple days. I think the first time was like 7 days long, and I had wrecked my car. So when I'm in the hospital there, this is where the diagnosis of bipolar disorder comes in. And now looking back in hindsight, it's where I can see that my identity was truly shifted at this point. When I had no clue what was going on, and I was in so much chaos, and I was tired, and I had lost my car, and I was so embarrassed with all the things I was doing that ended up landing me into the hospital. I'm just so confused what was going on. So when the doctor comes to me and tells me, this is what's wrong with your brain, it's not just the drugs. You have a brain imbalance. Your brain is chemically imbalanced, and you have manic bipolar, and it's a very extreme case, and you have to take medicine, and you will have to take this medicine the rest of your life to remain sane. And so I'm 19 years old, and I just was like, oh my goodness. I think so much a part of me was just so glad I was alive, that I was just like, I'll do whatever you say, doctor. Like, okay, like I need to sleep well. I need to stop doing drugs. I need to just accept that if I go on doing what I have been doing, I'm going to like truly have a chance of not coming in back to my sane mind, all that stuff. And I also saw a lot of stuff while I was in the hospital that I still just remember to this day. That's just a lot of seeds planted by God, even in the midst of my chaos. But because I didn't have a foundation of the Lord or of God, my soul was crying out to just be okay. And it clung to that identity of bipolar. And it just thought, if I could just start living right, I'll be okay. I'll also be viewed as being okay, because I didn't know at the time, but that was, like I said, embarrassing. And I was so discouraged in my soul about myself. Like, how did I just lose my mind and lose my college, lose my car? Everything was just, I have words now because it's so much years later about what I felt, which was just like utter shame and disappointment and confusion. And so by the time I get out of the hospital, they're kind of like, well, where are you going to go now, Lesley? And I'm like, well, I can't go back to, I don't have a car, and I can't go back to smoking weed, and everyone I know does drugs. So I guess rehab. So I ended up going to rehab. God opened that door very great, like right on time for me to get into this specific rehab. Praise God for my mom just helping me out and getting me there. So I spent 30 days in a rehab in Little Rock, Arkansas, and God began to plant many seeds when I was there. It was really, really amazing. Like, I went in and stopped smoking cigarettes. I was even very addicted to cigarettes at that point too. And when I went in that rehab, I was like, I need to change my life. I didn't even want to smoke cigarettes anymore. And I go in and I'm surrounded by all these women and all their stories. And I'm not the only one that's trying to get her life together. And, but I was still in a very sensitive, fragile state. And so I was just trying my best. And the rehab that I was in was not a Christian rehab. It was just more of the accept your diagnosis, which I would be called a dual diagnosis of addict, drug addict, mental illness diagnosis. Accept that learn to have a structure in your life, learn to get back on your feet, and then go through the steps. Of course, a lot of those steps that I was introduced to were very, very helpful in my life. I remember learning about what the word resentment was, and I was like, I have that. I have that. I need to work through that. What? Okay. I remember, God using many things when I was in rehab to plant seeds that I now know were just, were on firm foundation that God used later in my life. Even a woman that was at the rehab, she would take us to a church. She would take us to different meetings. And I remember like reading the Bible for the first time, but a part of my consciousness couldn't truly soak it in. Now that I have had my spirit really awoken and reborn, I can tell looking back that like I would read it. Like I found the Bible that I got when I was 19 in rehab, and I was taking little notes, and I was even telling people that you just need to talk to God like he's your friend. I had such an awareness that there was a God and that he was there, but I just didn't have enough to sustain me for what would happen next in my life. I even remember, I think it's good to mention another really strong seed in my life that happened there, which was a very, very powerful dream I had at rehab. I had never had this happen before. I was always a very vivid dreamer. But I remember this and it's coming to my mind, so I really want to share. So I was about to leave rehab and I have a dream where I'm in the room with all the women, and I wake up in the dream in the bed that I was in. And I walked downstairs fully in the dark and down into the main room where we would gather every day to have meetings and stuff. So in the dream, it's like I am as awake as like feeling like real life, if you know what I mean. And I get down to the main room in this dream, and I was completely overtaken by this very strong force. It lifted me off the ground and dragged me across the room and out the door. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, what has a hold of me? Like I had never experienced that type of feeling, and I knew it wasn't good. And I knew that I couldn't control it picking me up and moving me. And when I went out the room, it opened up to this field, and there was old friends, and they were circled up in a circle, even with their family members. And that thing picked me up, dragged me outside, and started circling me around the group of friends in the dream. And they were like, hi. But they started realizing something's up with Lesley. And so in the dream, I get taken up like upside down, very what you would see in like a creepy movie. And it starts taking me around this circle. And I said, this is so scary. And in my spirit, for the first time I ever experienced this, I said, you better let me go. I'm a child of God. And I had never said anything like that or experienced that even in real life. So in the dream, as soon as I said, you better let me go, I'm a child of God, I fell and it picked up two of my friends. And I woke up and I'm in that bed that I had just been woken up in that dream. And I had to walk down into that room that I was just experiencing that dream in. And I went to the lady that had become a mentor. And I said, oh my gosh, Miss Robin, help me. This dream, I was just completely overtaken for multiple days after that. It was so impactful and powerful. And she told me, God has his hand on your life, and he's showing you that you are his child and you have to take your authority. So there was a couple seeds like that one that were very strong that I just wanted to mention, because he's always chasing after us and trying to speak to us. And so after rehab, I went into a transitional home, and I don't even know how to explain like what it was. Basically like a place where people who were living sober, but you had to come home every night. I don't even know the right term for it, but I went there, and multiple other people from my rehab went there. I shared a room with another girl from my rehab. We shared a bathroom with two other girls. There was people there that were going through so many different things. I had a little tiny bed. It was in an old nursing home. And like the second day I moved in, again, my thoughts were, I need to get it together. I need to get a job. I probably need to go back to college because I messed all that up, and my family's so disappointed in me. I'm so disappointed in me. And that was my mindset after, is like, don't tell anyone what just happened. I don't even want to see anyone from my past. I was so embarrassed. And So anyway, that's kind of what my mindset at the time. So I got dressed as soon as I moved into that not rehab, the aftercare place, the living situation. And I walked across the street and I got a job. And from that point on, I just thought I just need to get it together. But the main point of me mentioning this is that throughout the rehab and going into the next place, because I never worked through the trauma I had been through, it was all still inside of me. It was all still there. And so my soul is still just waiting to be triggered to go into what happens next in my life. And so I don't know how long I was there, but I did go back to college. I did want to try to like redeem that. And even just seeing my professors again, I was so embarrassed. And the amount of shame that I had no idea how much it was actually taking a toll on my mental health even more. I even have a memory of seeing one of the nurses who saw me out of my mind she came into where I was working, and I ran and hid like a little kid behind the desk so she could not see me. Like, that's how I couldn't believe that had happened to me. And so I lived with embarrassment and shame and guilt. And so when I went to go back to college, something happened. I don't even remember what it was, but I got very triggered. I think it was on New Year's Eve. I don't know what I did. I think I snuck in my sister's dorm and I got drunk and I didn't go back home. And when you don't go back home to that type of living place, like, you either get kicked out. Well, you're supposed to get kicked out. And like the day that I did that, an old friend from college like calls me up and said, my old roommate moved out. Will you move in with me? And the enemy was setting me up to transition my life into what I would call the door to the new age. So this is like a huge part of my life and my story, is spending the years that I spent getting into more deception and more, well, I'm just going to get into it here. And so I left that place. I threw all my stuff in a garbage bag and I left. And within, I don't know how long, I'm back to smoking marijuana, drinking, and full force back into the festival life. Music festivals became, for many years, I don't know, an idol is what I would call it. Like, music in general was an idol. When you don't have God, you're looking for anything to fill you. And so if I could look forward to like a fun party or a music festival or go to a song for comfort, just like many of you guys are doing, just trying to feel okay. I started doing that. And of course, with all that trauma still buried in me, I just pushed it down even further. Like, the disappointment for just messing up, drinking again and leaving the place, and all the people in my college, like I messed up college for the second time. I was just having to go to another level of numbing, another level of escaping the way I felt. And so I think if I can recall like what the doorway into the new age really was I saw someone looking at these crystals and they knew the names of the crystals and the properties of the crystals. And I had never seen that before. It's fine if you know what a rock's name is. That's not demonic. But for me, it was such a doorway because I all of a sudden had this like crazy curiosity to understand the properties of these rocks. And as soon as I could read, oh, this rock right here will help you feel grounded, I'm like clinging to that thing like it's a pillow. Like, I'm like, oh, I need that, because I was so traumatized about what was wrong with my mind. And I began to hear in my mind, you're crazy. And I just want to point that out, that after I was hospitalized, I heard a voice, and you just think it's your own voice until you get woken up to the spiritual world. But I heard a voice telling me that I was crazy, that I talked too much, that I was just insane. I felt dissociated all the time. And so I was so sensitive. And so as soon as you could tell me that this would help me, I'm going to grab all hold of it. And so that I was so easily malleable, like, here, take this, try this, began a whole new chapter of my life. And so as I look back, I did ask God, like, what else did I open the door to regarding what set me up for New Age? And I remember being like, another memory just to share is at 16 years old, I was watching, what's it called? Long Island Medium, and it just had come on TV, and I'm like, wow, she's helping people have closure. This is so cool, because I know that like spiritual stuff is real. Like, if you ever, I literally raised my hand. I'm like sitting alone in my house, and I'm like, I hope that I could do that one day. And so I had just not grown up with any type of warning that, hey, speaking to the dead is not pure. All that stuff was not, I didn't have any of those warnings. And so I was very, very open to all of that stuff. And so by the time, fast forward to where I said the crystals were an open door for me, it just began to like, the people that started to be attracted to my life were like so deep into the New Age practices that it was just one after the next, after the next. And I'm going out to the bars and I'm partying harder than ever before. And it's different from before I was in rehab, where I'm just partying with like your high school friends and your old thing. It's like I'm around these people who seem happy and care about the environment and maybe trying to be more positive. And they're not trying to sit around and do drugs and play beer pong. Like, they want to go outside and take walks, and it was just enticing me. And I'm grateful for what God did use with that period of my life, because being more positive is a good thing. Taking walks is a good thing. Things that I'm mentioning. Eating well is a good thing. All these little things he did bless in my life during these years of New Age, I'm grateful for. But it was one thing after the next. So before you know it, I am going into full forge meditations where I am inviting spirit guides to come help me. And when you hear the word New Age, it's just, we can get into that another time, but it's just pick and choose, smorgasbord, whatever you believe and whatever's true and right for you and whatever you think God is and whatever you want to think God is, it's all of that. And so I was picking and choosing whatever made me feel okay. And so that was crystals, and that was, saging my house, and that was getting oracle deck cards in the future. And I was super, super personally drawn to Native American Indian witchcraft, now that I know what that is. But I was into animal tarot deck cards, where you basically are being sent messages through animals, and you have an animal spirit guide that's coming to be a part of your life for certain seasons. How that looks is like you go into a meditation and you ask for a spirit guide. And let's say I had a vision of like a tiger coming to me. I'm all of a sudden like, oh, the tiger animal totem spirit is coming to me to guide me. And that's the different things I was into. I was doing breathing Kriya yoga, which is like where you're focusing on your third eye and you're just doing this crazy breathing. And the people that I began to be attracted to, like I said, were those who I thought were looking to be more of a well-rounded person. And so in that world, when you start going not only to just music festivals, but spiritual music festivals, they have altars everywhere. They have crazy stuff at these music festivals that I would go to that were like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, people are just taking acid and taking mushrooms and going out and just trying to be liberated and dance and go to these different areas of meditation and yoga and sound bathing and different Reiki sessions. I was introduced to friends that would come to me and do Reiki on me, and I completely opened myself up. And so I could really get into that, but I don't want to get lost in the details as well as that. I really want to do a lot more deep dive into the New Age because it's such a big part of my testimony. But I'm just going to skip forward just a little bit. So during this time, I'm continuing to try to fill so many different voids. I did want to mention this one part of my testimony is that I had been taken advantage of inappropriately sexually by multiple situations that I was in. When you're doing drugs and staying at people's house and living out of your car, you end up getting in a lot of bad situations. And I had so many times where I just wanted my friends to be friends and they wanted more. And at a certain part of my testimony, I did turn my heart off to men, and I was even dating women because I was just so traumatized by men. And I thought that we had to figure out how to embrace our sexuality. A lot of that also was fed into by astrology, because they're like, oh, you're this sign and you're this moon sign, so you need to embrace who you are. It's really shaping your identity by these different modules. Anyway, so I really did want to mention that part because it paints a picture of my life even more. And so I'm dating men and women. Each relationship I'm going into, I'm getting more traumatized. I'm experiencing more and more dissociation, crazy demonic dreams that I would wake up from. I was being so much more desensitized to chaos. It was just so normal at a certain point that it got dangerous, because it's like, even if God was trying to speak to me or give me a demonic dream to warn me, I was like, well, so used to crazy, and I'm so used to crazy people that just my boundaries were gone. My any type of like sound mind was out the window. I'm telling you what. And so the more weird, the more crazy, the more extreme you could be I just wanted that, and I wanted to continue to figure out what to do to just be okay. And so eventually I moved to this small town in northern Arkansas, and I was living with a boyfriend at the time on a community farm who actually was completely into witchcraft. I had no idea at the time because I didn't understand what witchcraft was. What I mean is, like, when I look back on it, like, our house, like, he had a cat skull with his tarot cards, and God, I can't even explain how much stuff happened with that relationship. Like, I had no idea what I was into. But just with another breakup and another breakup, I start to really, really cry out for something different. Not just, I want to feel good and have fun at these festivals and learn to breathe and take this crystal to put under my pillow so I'll have a good dream, and take this one to protect my house. It went from that to a deep yearning and a longing for healing. I had heard about a book that talked about what fear was, and I said, I have what this book is talking about. I have fear. And I heard people around me start talking about healing their inner child, and I'm like, I've never dealt with this stuff. Like, I've never dealt with my childhood trauma, and there was a shift that happened. But I'm so deep in deception at this point that I continued anything in that realm to seek that. I even at that same point heard about a friend at a music festival who talked about she worked for someone who was a healer, and he was helping people literally lay hands on them, and he used angels is what he said, and they were seeing miracles such as cancer disappearing and objects in people's body disappearing. And so I went to see this healer, and there was so much that happened with that, including the introduction to knowing that angels and aliens and all that were here to help us. He told me as he laid hands on me when I went to this man for a healing session that if I did not get healed emotionally, that it would kill me. That's the level of emotional trauma that even this man felt on me. And so the next thing that I remember in this season of my life is I am continuing to be addicted to drugs, and I can't stop. And I'm living in a place that's beautiful around me. I have everything that I thought at that point that would make me happy. Like a job, living in this beautiful place, living in this free hippy dippy life. But I was noticing like never before that when I was alone, I was so tormented. I was so lonely, and I was just, the way I was going to drugs was so I knew there was an issue. And so at this point, after seeing the healer and starting to have these revelations that I am not Okay, I should be happy. Like everything around me paints a picture as I should like finally be really happy. I'm finally getting to a place where I've got what I think should fulfill me, and I'm so the least happy I've ever felt. What is wrong? And that's when some of the crowd I was around, you need to go to peyote ceremony. And when I had heard about peyote in the past, it sounded like a really crazy drug to me, and I never wanted to try that till I was older and not so afraid, because I was doing all these other drugs. But for some reason, I was like, yeah, you're right. It's time. I'm going to do that. And so I went, and at this point, I am homeless. I wouldn't have said that at the time. I wasn't always homeless, but sometimes I had a place. Sometimes I did not. Sometimes I was literally in the street going, I wonder where I'm staying tonight. And I'm like, it's a miracle to just be here. But okay, so I go to the peyote ceremony. I cannot remember how many I went to, but I remember like the first time going, it was, I drove up to southern Missouri and I entered into Native American land. And we started the ceremony, and I had never experienced anything like that. Again, you're surrounded by the same type of people who are all in the new age and who are all seeking healing, who are all wanting love and light and peace. But they start out these peyote ceremonies with intentions. And so I thought this is very great because I'm so sick of just willy-nilly partying. I'm really ready to like have intentions in my life and figure out why I'm so unhappy. And so they have you set the intention. They even sage you down before you go in regarding like in to take the peyote, and you drink this peyote. And the ceremonies are either at night, you drink it at night, you go all night, and in the morning you gather back around to talk about what everyone experienced, or it's a day ceremony where you drink it in the morning, you go all day, and then you gather at night to talk about the experience. So I went multiple times, but I remember the first time I went, my mind was very set on universe, help me, like heal me. At this point, my idea of God being like a personal God was completely gone. It had been gone for a while because of so much different information I was surrounded by. So I was crying out to, basically, it's almost like the Force of Star Wars, like the Force be with you. It's just this like impersonal force, which is so lonely, by the way. And you are just so much of those type of belief systems that I was surrounded by and started to believe is that you're just this part of God, like this source light, and you're just like a little aspect of him, of God, not him, because you didn't say him. You just said like source or universe. So you're always looking in, and anytime something's going wrong, you're always looking how to fix it. And so at these peyote ceremonies, I was crying out, universe, help me. Whatever the truest light, just help me. These angels, at this point I had all these angels I thought were like my guardian angels, like talking to me all the time, like spirit animals talking to me all the time. They would tell me what to do and I would do it. And that makes me angry because I'll tell you why later. But I would listen to them in just childlike faith. Hey, take that crystal, go over there, do this, do that. I would listen. And so I am like at these peyote ceremonies crying out, and I go, I'd throw up the first time, and I'm thinking I'm just purging all this childhood trauma from, my parents getting divorced and what I didn't process as a kid and how I carried a burden for my mother and how I abandoned my sisters when I lost my mind and how I hurt their feeling. Everything I was really trying to say, come up and let me deal with you. Let me heal myself. And then universe, help me out. So I go back for like the second or third time. And let me just say, like you fast for like days before this. Like I even quit smoking marijuana to go to these peyote ceremonies. And that's huge because I was so addicted. Like you could never not see me not high for like 13 years. Besides that period of time I was in rehab. It was just unreal, like unreal. And so I was that serious. I was like, I'm not even going to smoke pot. I'm not going to eat for 2 days because I'm going to heal myself. Like this peyote's going to heal me. It's going to go inside me and it's going to purge all this stuff. And then I'm going to throw up and feel better and everything's going to be good. I'm going to find the answers. And so at one point, I think it's like the third or fourth time, I don't remember, something happens. And so I was sitting there and I had this very strong angelic presence come before me. And I thought it was just the same old things I was used to experiencing, but it felt very different. And I heard a voice that I'd never heard because, like I said, I was used to hearing a lot of voices, a lot of my own voices that I thought were mine, and then the different spirit guides. But something inside said, it's okay. You can let it out. You can let it go. And I felt like someone just like bursted this emotional, I don't know, part of me. And I began to weep uncontrollably. And there was people all around me. And I had this, I'm so sick of caring what people think. I don't care. I do not care. I am going to cry. And I don't care who sees me. And I don't care if I understand anything. And I let it out. And at this point, someone comes running up to me at the Peyote, I almost said festival, the Peyote ceremony, and begins to rock and hold me and cry. And I felt a very pure presence with this person. And another person comes up to me with like this crystal in his hand and was like, what's going on? What's wrong? Are you okay? And I was like, I was starting to feel a lot of pain in my belly button. So I was like, my belly button hurts. And I was thinking, this is why I'm here. I'm here to heal. This big angel just showed up and I'm getting what I've been searching for. Healing. And so this new age guy takes this crystal and puts it in my belly button and said, are you ready to let it go? It's from the womb. It's like, this is deep stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready. And he like pulls like that. And I just felt like someone pulled the plug on like the bath water. Like I don't know if I let out a scream, but like even the people at the peyote ceremony asked me to move away because it seemed disturbing, which is really strange. So I like move away, isolated away from the people there. And the man with the crystal follows me out there and says, do you know what you need to let go of? And I was like, I don't know. Maybe it was like I wanted to go back into the most traumatic memories and just in my mind give the universe those. Like, yeah, I know. I think I know what I need to let go of, and I forgive people. And then he did it again. He took like the crystal and did whatever. And I don't know what happened with that. I don't understand to this day. But I'm going to tell you what it felt. It felt like someone took a knife and cut me from my stomach across. I have never felt that much pain in my life. And so I'm thinking this is very intense. Like this is a very intense healing. And so the other man who initially had come up to me and held me, who I said I felt that pure presence from, he came to me and I said, I'm not okay. I'm like shaking. I'm like, my stomach is hurting. I don't know what's going on. And I laid down and he put his hand on me and said, I'm going to pray for you. He began to pray over me in the name of Jesus. And I had never experienced anyone speak about God as a father or about Jesus in a long time. Like even hearing that name was very refreshing to me. But I was very out of my mind. But I remember as he laid hands on me, I started to have all these memories and I started to scream and I started to remember everyone who inappropriately touched me. I remember so many things that I had buried inside my soul and I was screaming and kicking and fighting. And again, I'm thinking, wow, this is some crazy healing. And like I said before, I was so desensitized to crazy. And it's honestly a blessing of how far out I was there because I did not hold back. And that really set me up for an amazing deliverance with God because I did not hold back and I didn't care what anyone thought. But I'm thinking I'm going through some crazy healing. And I want to share a vision I had because this is unbelievable to me now, especially that I know about the significance of this vision. At the time, I had no clue what it meant. So while I'm laying there kicking and screaming and having these experiences, I go into a full vision. And a vision like this I've never had prior or ever since. It was as if you were taken there. So in my mind, I was taken, just where you're like standing in a city, like, I mean, taken somewhere. And I knew I was in Egypt, and I remember, I don't know how I knew that there's something that happened there from the Bible times. I had known some Bible stories when I was young, but I didn't know how I understood that I was in Egypt, and that the people were screaming, and there were like children being killed, and they were taking the blood and they were spreading it over the doorposts. I know what that story is now. And if you don't know that story, you should look it up. But I was taken there, and I remember seeing the blood being wiped over the doorstep or the door frame like it was me. And it felt so sad and intense and real. And I didn't understand what happened. And I actually later on, when I came out of that vision the following weeks, I thought I must have had a past life in Egypt. Like, when you don't have the Holy Spirit, the way you will interpret things is the way you will interpret them. And so that is something that later on God would explain what was happening in that moment. That he was saying it was enough, that he was taking his hand and he was saying, all right, Lesley. And he was pulling me out of that darkness, and he was saving my soul. And so the next day I continued having extreme pain, where the people there were begging to take me to the hospital. I don't know what was happening. It was so horrible. And I continued the next day to be prayed over by that same man. And he prayed over for me for hours and hours. And at one point, I experienced a demon being cast out of me. At the time, I had no clue that was happening, but I knew it was weird because I went from just being like uncontrollable. I thought me letting all those emotions out and letting my body flail around was just me letting go of the anger, frustration, disappointment, shame, all that stuff. I'm just letting it out. But at one point, it shifted inside of my mind an evil hatred and anger that seemed inhuman. It was not me. It was not me. And this feeling was so intense. Like, I knew that the thing inside of me that hated was hating the man praying for me. It hated him. It wanted him to die. It was such a separation. Like, it's like people who've gone through deliverance know exactly what I'm talking about. You go like in your mind or in your soul, and it's like I could feel myself separated in my soul from this horrible, it's almost felt like this reptilian dragon. I don't even know how to explain what it felt like. And it was so evil, and it wanted to kill the man that was praying for me in the name of Jesus. And he came close and he said, in the name of Jesus, you leave her. And I'm screaming and I'm blacking out, and I'm still having no clue what was happening. I didn't know what was happening for months later, for a while. And I'll share that. But so that, again, even though the man is saying in the name of Jesus, I'm still so out of my mind that I'm just like, wow, I'm going through some crazy healing. Like, this is intense. And after the second day's kind of ending, the man who was praying for me said, welcome home. Jesus loves you. Do you want to be baptized? And I felt a renewing in my soul, like something different. Like, yeah. I mean, when he said, do you want to be baptized? Like, I uncontrollably nodded my head. It wasn't even like my understanding. It wasn't my mind going, okay, I understand what you're asking, and I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna make a decision. It was like my literal head was like uncontrollably shaking. Yes. And my body just gets up and runs to the river and just jumps in. Like, it was uncontrollable. Like, Jesus had come in and, without me doing anything to deserve it, came in and said, I'm saving my daughter. I'm saving her. And I jumped in that water, and he said, I remember him saying, do you understand that when you go in this water, you will die and you will rise with Christ, like he died for you and rose for you? And I was just like this, but I did not understand, like with my comprehension, like with my conscious mind. I just did it. There's something supernatural about baptism, because after that point, it was like something really changed in my spirit. And at the time, I had no idea that we are a three-part being. I had no idea that we are body, soul, and spirit. I think most people in the New Age, your soul and your spirit are like the same thing. And so most of the people in New Age, they're fighting and crying out for soul enlightenment. And so like your mind, will, and emotions. But something happened in my spirit, and it felt so different. It felt so different. But because I had opened so many doors and I had so many spirits in my life, I still was doing whatever my life was like before. I went back to the little town I had lived in, and I began to experience what I thought were like continual healing symptoms, because I'm seeking healing and I'm going to these peyote ceremonies and I'm putting my intentions out there and I'm trying to be a better person. So I continue to have what now I know is Jesus Christ awaken my spirit. But at the time I just think, wow, I'm remembering things that I never ever remembered. Like I'm telling you, as soon as I got that baptism, I started to remember every bad thing I had ever done in my life. And it grieved me. Like the ability to see right and wrong was clicked in my mind. Like I did not understand what was happening. And I began to start processing these memories. And the man who helped me at the peyote ceremony, he actually had an awakening with Jesus. He was an atheist. He had a really powerful encounter. He believed Jesus was God. And he said that God sent him back to those peyote ceremonies because people were seeking the truth, and he was going to help teach the actual truth to them. And he was going to try to baptize people. And so that same man, praise God for his life, came to where I was living because God told him to. And he would come and he's like, Lesley, you're like homeless. And I'm like, no, I'm not, dude. I have plenty of friends I stay with. I'm fine. And he was like, okay. And he would take oil and he would say, can I pray for you? And I'd be like, yeah, of course. And he'd pray for me and he would say, do you want to give your whole life to Jesus Christ? And I would be like, yes. I would say yes. And I didn't understand what I was doing. And he said, God told me that to give you a car I have. He had like this extra car, was a van. One of those really cool vans that like had a bed in the back, like almost like you could live in it. And I just thought, wow, I must be on the right track. I'm getting blessings. Like it was such a blessing to have that car. Cause when I was, I think 19, 20, when I told you about being hospitalized, like I wrecked my car and I did not have a car all the way up until way after Jesus saved me. I was too reckless. The Lord knew I did not need a car. Anyway, so I had that given to me, and he would continue to come up there because of the burden in his heart to help me. He knew that I had said yes in that baptism, and I was about to have my life be changed. And he just would come and to continue to plant seeds in my life. Like he had a really strange, not strange, but great way of like sharing the Bible stories. He would just be like, hey, there was this man one time, and he would not say anything about like the Bible. Like he wouldn't say, yeah, in 1 John 5, there's a story about this man and this is what he did. He would just be like, hey, there was this man this one time and he had a house and children and one day this and that. It was almost like parables, but I didn't know they were from the Bible until he would slowly continue to tell me about the truth of Scripture. And I love the way that it sounded. It was so deep to me. I never heard anything like it. And this man would come and say things that would trigger me so bad. He would say, you know, all your friends, like all these love and light people, as soon as you don't agree with them, they don't want anything to do with you. And it was very hard to hear because so much of what he was saying was so true, but it hurt me. Like, it made me angry. And basically, one of the biggest things I remember shifting also from me wanting to separate myself from the people I was around was him saying, "What is truth?" And the group of friends I was around, someone said, "Well, it's perspective." And I began to realize that that was a very dangerous statement. Like, if someone's perspective could just be the truth, how is that even right? Like, if something is morally pure and good, shouldn't it be morally pure and good across the board for every person and be good for every person? Yes. Okay. Well, what if this person's perspective of what good and love is so dark and twisted, but that's their truth? I was like, oh, it just doesn't work. It doesn't lay out right. And my mind was just being the beginning process of the structure of my mind, my belief system being torn down. And I ended up going to one last spiritual festival, and that person went with me because he knew this girl needs help. And on the way to that festival, he would pray for me because I would continue to have spontaneous moments of like my body hurting and a memory coming up and me crying and screaming again. And he would start praying over me in the name of Jesus. And then I had another encounter with what I talked about with the demon manifesting. I remember in that van, and I'm screaming, crying, having a memory of when my first boyfriend's best friend took advantage of me, and I could see him in my mind, and it was like this horrible, evil, taunting demon instead of the person. I saw this demon, and I was so traumatized. And so the man laid his hand on my head because my head began to burn, and he said, "You leave in Jesus' name." And I would scream, and I literally felt this thing leave my brain. It was insane. And I, again, still am thinking, what is going on? I'm going through this crazy healing. I don't know what this is. And so when this just continued, when I'm leaving that music festival, I started to notice that all of like Lesley's thoughts, I did not agree with. Like, something higher, my spirit was like, I don't like how you're thinking. I don't like what you're desiring. You're trying to smoke pot. You don't even feel good. You tried to go dance and have fun like you've been doing for years and years down at these music festivals. What is life? Like, it was so bizarre. And when I left that festival, the man who helped me said, "You're at a crossroad." He looked at me and said, "God is speaking to me and saying that if you go back to your life, your old life, it will be very hard because you've been baptized and everything is about to change for you. But if you go back, it's going to be so bad." And I did not like to hear that. I didn't like to hear anything hard at all. And so my spirit that had been woken up said, "You will not be returning to your home, like where you had your things." Even though I was homeless, I had my things somewhere. You will just not even go back and get any of your stuff. You're going to go and stay with this person for a while. That person opened up their home to me, and I pray God blesses them with every spiritual blessing for doing this for me. But they opened their home up to me because they knew that I needed help. I was very malnourished. I was like 102 pounds. I was so unhealthy in so many areas of my life. And I was having a true spiritual awakening, not a spiritual awakening. I was having where God, the true living God who came to the earth as a human, stepped in my life and was about to reveal to me the biggest questions I've ever had in my life and heal me and deliver me of all my fears, all my traumas, all of my issues. He was coming in. It was a rescue mission, and it had started. And I said yes, and I went to that person's house. He started, telling me I needed to eat more, that I was very malnourished, and I began to slowly feel convicted about all my new age items. The person was very patient with me. They didn't just up front come to me and say like, "Hey, your rocks are demonic. Hey, you need to throw away your tarot cards. You need to this and that." They just would say the truth, like, hey, you know those rocks, God made those rocks. Like, he would take the way that I viewed the impersonal force of God and continue to reiterate that God was a personal God who saw me and know me and created the world. And I eventually started having these now I know are prophetic dreams from the Lord, which would show me visions of my future. And he would show me things like why to throw away some of my items. And I'll just give you an example of one dream. So I had a dream, I had a notepad that I would do channeled writing in. And if you don't know what that is, I'll talk more about it one day. But you basically yield yourself to spirits and you draw and you write. And I had it full of writings and drawings, and I had that with me. And in the dream, I have it on my shoulder in a bag. And in the dream, a huge rushing water comes and it takes that bag off and it goes into a whirlwind, looks like a hurricane. And it's like I knew that I could never, ever reach or access that drawing. And it was so intense. It was so real that when I woke up, I was like, I've got to get rid of that drawing. So these are the different types of ways and examples of how God began to show me to throw away my New Age items. But because I hadn't truly had the revelation of Jesus Christ as God, the level of warfare was starting to get bad. Like I started to feel depressed. I started to not want to get out of bed. But as soon as I picked up the Bible and as soon as I started reading it, it's like all hell was loosed upon me. All of those voices that I continued to, all the demons now I know that are demons that I had that I thought were my angel guides and spirit guides and animal guides. I had already, obviously, like I said, had a couple cast out. They used to speak very encouraging things to me, tell me to do things all the time. Well, their voices became very different as soon as I started reading the Bible. And if you watch these testimonies, you're going to see that so many hundreds and thousands of people are experiencing this exact same thing, where these spirit guides, these nice spirits who are just love and light, are not nice and they are not pure. And the reality of angels and demons is real, and there's a lot to be said about that. And so these demons began to torment me, began to tell me, you will never be happy again. The amount of depression that I felt was unreal. Like I knew what people felt like when they didn't want to live. I would stay in bed for 24 hours a day. I couldn't even get up to shower. And I was slowly starting to hear the Holy Spirit speak to me about continuing to read the Bible. He told me to read Romans first, and then he told me to read the Gospels. And when I got to the Gospel of John, the verses 1 through 14, it talks about that Jesus Christ, the one who created the world, came into the world, and the world did not recognize him. But those who do will be adopted as sons and daughters of God. In that moment, when I read that, I threw the Bible to the ground and had a supernatural revelation and understanding that God was personal and that he was Jesus. And at that point, I began to surrender the marijuana, the things that I had been surrendering to the universe and to myself and trying with all my might to release. I began to know that I'm supposed to surrender it to him who sees me and knows me. And it was overwhelming. And the demonic attack on me was so intense by that point, I couldn't believe what was happening. I had thought the reality was this, like, darkness is here because light needs darkness to equal itself out in unity. I had no idea there was actually demonic spirits. I mean, I think I thought that like spirits were like ghosts or something. Like, I didn't really get it. But like, to realize I was in such deception, it sent a depression on me that, like, by the grace of God, I got out of. But at a certain point, I began to turn on YouTube and look up or I saw something. Actually, I got an email from someone who made the oracle cards I made, and she had like renounced New Age, and someone had made a video. So I went on YouTube to try to find it, and it was someone who had a very powerful testimony. I believe it was Stephen Bankart's, and he was sharing his testimony about Jesus coming to him and waking him up. And I started to realize I wasn't going crazy, because even though that man who was helping me was telling me those things, he was like the only voice in my life telling me that, and I didn't know how to like trust it, and I didn't know what was wrong with me, and I didn't know what was going on, and I thought I was insane, and I thought like the voice is telling me to get rid of all my New Age stuff. I didn't know if it was me or God, or now there's demons, and now there's what's the difference, and I don't understand the reality. It just was so intense. But the testimonies that I began to watch are what allowed me to sit up out of that depression and start my journey of like truly walking out of the pit. Like, it's like I went into a pit and sat there, I got stuck there. But God knew that I personally needed to be stripped of everything. He knew that I needed to not be able to run. I was such a runner. At this point, I didn't have a way to run. I didn't have like family. Like, I didn't feel comfortable going to my family's yet. I didn't have friends to run to. I was stuck in this house with only my soul's ability to cry out. And I continue to have revelation as I continue to read the Bible on who God was and the reality I was in. And God told me, he said, you know that you don't know what joy is. Because the only joy you feel, Lesley, is if you have this to look forward to, if you had that good friend, if you had that marijuana, you have no true joy. And it was so true. And my whole reality was just being torn down. And to me, it was devastating, because I was just so, I didn't know how to handle what I was going through. But Jesus knew how, and he knew that in my worst moments and in my deepest despair, that it would form a foundation that no one would ever be able to shake from me. No one could ever come in after these experiences and tell me that God wasn't real. No one could ever come in these church systems and the religious structures and tell me that deliverance wasn't real. That's how Jesus met me. He came to me. He sent someone to lay hands on me and cast demons out of me when I was out of my mind, when I didn't even know what I was doing. He knew how to reach me, and he knows how to reach every single person. And he is pure love, and he's not this religious white man, whatever you hear about the Bible and Christianity from people who don't represent him well. He was completely showing me who he truly was. And my deliverance never stopped. Right now, it's been about 8 years since where I'm telling you that happened. And I'm going to keep sharing my story in more depth. But the deliverance didn't stop for about 8 months of this literally screaming and hands laid on and demons coming out. And then about a year in, the depression started going even more down. And about 2 years in, the Lord sent me to a deliverance minister, and the curse of mental illness, of the bipolar curse, was broken off me in one moment. And I will definitely go into deeper detail because it is so worth it. And it is such an amazing story. He completely healed me of bipolar. He completely healed my body chemistry. When you have a body chemistry imbalance, it's not like, oh, you're just, normal, and then one day you go into mania. I felt all the time like I had taken cocaine and LSD and trauma and never stopped. Like a permanent, where I would just sweat all the time. My emotions were extremely high. I would hear thoughts that would never stop running. It was just such a real experience. And I didn't know God was going to heal me from the bipolar until he did. It's such an amazing story. I would love to just talk all about it right now, but it's worth doing a whole episode by itself on. But anyway, I was healed from bipolar, and for the next multiple years, he would continue to show me the truth of his spirit. He filled me with his Holy Spirit. He gave me supernatural revelation that he was there with me my whole entire life. He filled me up. He moved me. He continued to redeem all the gifts that I had inside of me, such as music. He anointed me to be able to play music for him. And it felt so good. It felt so different than any type of like playing music in the past or for the world. It's like a different realm. It's amazing. But I could just go on and on about the things he's done for me. He moved me from South Arkansas over to Georgia, and now I'm living in Georgia, and just I can see his hand in my life every day, and I can't wait to continue to share on this podcast what he has done. And because of how impactful seeing those people share their testimonies online when I was in utter misery, the passion I have for testimonies is so on fire. I love hearing people's stories, and I want to get so many people to share their stories like I'm doing right now on this podcast. And I'm so looking forward to it. And I believe God is going to just meet us all here as you listen, as I share, and as whoever comes to share. His Holy Spirit is with us. And I just thank you for taking the time to listen to this testimony. If you want to stick around, there's going to be a lot more going into different stories. And like I said, testimonies and just real raw encounters. It's hard to cover a testimony in just an hour or two, but I'm grateful God has helped me get through this, and I pray that it blesses you and increases your faith and gives you a hunger for the truth, because so many of you are truth seekers. So many of you are trying to figure out why the reality is the way that it is. And so many of you are seeking everything to be healed. You just want to be okay. But God loves you, and he made you, and every single thought he has about you are good. So everything you've heard about God in the past that has painted a picture about God that is not true, I pray you'll wipe that out of your mind and have an open mind and an open heart to cry out and say, the true living God, please reveal yourself to me. And he will. And he loves you so much. And I hope you have an awesome day. And I'll see you later. Okay, bye.